Welcome to the Dota 2 wrap-up, where we wrap up the last week at Dota 2. I'm your host, DJ Wilma.
Please listen carefully.
This week, I wanted to discuss a little bit behind the scenes of the Dota 2 scene. So, esports may be growing as a whole, but it doesn't mean that everyone who's working in it is rolling in cash. Dota 2 is a very top-heavy esport currently, with obviously the top players getting the most money and the largest salaries. These salaries can be gargantuan, even taking up all the revenues of the esports organization that pays for it. But the teams that are sitting at the cusp of Tier 1, Tier 2 often find themselves making around $1,000 if they're lucky, which is really not a living wage depending on what country you live in. In fact, a team like Zoomers, with no sponsor at all, has made a dominant performance on the North American scene. But since the beginning of the year, they've actually only won $32,000 in prize pool, which ends up being only about $6,800 per player. Especially when looking at North America, there's only one team of the top teams that actually has an organization, which is crazy. So that means the rest of the teams are probably not functioning off of a salary and have to use the money that they win in prize pools to pay for their lives. On top of that, if you're working in the industry, unless you somehow fell upon stardom, chances are you even took a pay cut in your own industry to be able to work in esports. When it comes to the Dota 2 community, we don't have a problem with forking over cash to be able to help fund TI, but what we don't do is consume content. The top Dota 2 podcast has 1/5 to 1/10 the traffic of the top League of Legends podcast. In fact, on Twitch, our numbers have been stagnating and slowly decreasing. When looking at June between 2018, 2019, and 2020, we haven't grown very much, if at all, whereas League of Legends has been kind of kicking our butts. So it's important that we keep pushing Valve to start the DPC so that we can have a system that supports the players, the Tier 2 scene, and the lower ranks of the Tier 1 scene, so they can do this for a living and they can have a living wage. But also what we can do is we can follow the players on Twitter, watch some content, support the people that surround the community outside of Valve to be able to help make the system stronger and better overall. In recent results, ESL One Thailand 2020 Asia came to a close last week. Neon Esports was able to beat out the likes of T1, GeekFam, and Sparking Arrow Gaming to be able to claim 4th place. Boom Esports was able to win the lower bracket finals against Team Fnatic to be able to play up against TNC Predator in the grand finals. Though the series was very close and went all 5 games, it was TNC Predator that ended up being the champion of ESL One Thailand 2020. Also ending this week was the Omega League, with the Divine Division for America going 3-0 in favor of Quincy Crew over Zoomers, and the Divine Division of Europe going 3-0 to Fly to Moon over Misery's 5-stack 5-men. Finally, in the Immortal European Division, audiences bore witness to the closest to TI caliber games we've seen in a very long time. Team Nigma was able to beat down Alliance into 4th place after one of the closest holds in pro Dota history. This would not be enough for Enigma, as OG would come back and be able to 2-0 them in the lower bracket finals, leaving OG to face up against Team Secret in the grand finals. Team Secret's social media guy pretty much summed it up all in one image, and Team Secret ended up being your champions of the Omega League. In recent roster changes, Vici Gaming announced the departure of rOtk, their coach, and Yang, their offlaner. This would actually be Yang's first time away from the organization since 2015, where he started his pro career under Vici Potential. PSG.LGD also announced the departure of FYN Somnus'M, also known as FY God and Maybe. This supports the rumor that some of the top players in the Chinese region are banding together to create their own new team. In the C region, GeekFam and Reality have both announced that they are going to be disbanding their Dota 2 rosters. They cited the reasoning being mostly that Valve's lack of support from the DPC during the COVID-19 situation was one of the main causes. F&G announced that he was leaving Gambit Esports, but has yet to announce whether he is joining Alliance or not, as he's been subbing their position 5 for the past several months now. In podcast, We Say Things, featuring SUNSfan and syndereN, talked about the Liquid vs 5-men series that had 3 game crashes in a row, CSGO coaches who decided to cheat, and the outrage over Valve's abandonment of the competitive scene. In the Side Poll podcast, DotaCapitalist sat down with SirActionSlacks and Jenkins to relive the magic of those two casting, and also to rage about streaming rights. Coming up this week, the BTS Pro Series Season 3 Americas kicked off yesterday with the top North American, South American teams competing it out. That's it for the Dota 2 wrap-up. I'm your host, DJ.
Please listen carefully.